Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Radio Works World. My name is Gill Barham, the Miracle Molecule host, and you have joined the Vitality Show. And today I have my amazing goddess and guru, as I call her, the lovely Marion Bevington joining me. Hello.
Hello, Jill, and it's such an honour to be called a goddess and a guru by somebody that I consider to be the
same. So you're actually in the country for a little while. It's very nice of you to grace us with your presence.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the UK for I don't know how long. I'm off to Morocco in September, so that's very exciting. But I think until September I'll be here.
All right. Okay. So if anybody wants to do anything with Marion, you've got approximately 2 months.
I'm only going to Morocco for 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. That's fine. You're allowed. Okay. But like me, you do lots of stuff online anyway, don't you? So it's all good. And thank God for the internet, what I say. Absolutely. Okay. So you've joined the Vitality Show. Now, this is just our second program on the Radio Works World platform. And what I wanted to do was to be able to...
And you... Oh, hang on, that's my phone. Let me see that. Now I don't know how to turn it off.
I can hear me talking. Have you got it?
That was a bit scary, wasn't it?
That was a bit scary, actually. I got a massive echo. So just to explain to you who are listening, if you're listening live or if you're listening on the record or later on in the day, is that what I wanted to be able to do, I have another show called Light-Hearted Conversations with people of significance. And I've already actually interviewed Marion on that show. So you must catch that episode because it's really, really interesting. Mm-hmm. But what I wanted to be able to do was to answer questions that you may have or any issues or any kind of interest that you may have in this world that I kind of inhabit and populate. Because I'm very fortunate in that I'm very linked to all sorts of people with all sorts of skills in the well-being world. So talking about health and vitality, mindset, prosperity, abundance, law of attraction, finding your why, having passion and purpose in your life. And I'm just realized that I'm so well connected that I'm being really selfish if I keep this all to myself. And what I wanted to be able to do was to provide a platform so that I could bring in all of these specialities, answer the questions that you've got, or maybe even just stimulate some thoughts. Maybe just get you thinking about stuff that maybe you've never even considered before. Because what I've discovered over the last sort of 4 years is that, being healthy and happy and prosperous, this lovely feeling of well-being, is all to do with you understanding and having a better awareness of yourself, where you are and where you want to go to and what might be stopping you getting there, just for an example. And that health and illness and disease, which is my big passion, is so much more than just about symptomatic relief and about what's actually going on physically. It's also to do with what's going on physiologically, but also in terms of your mind and all of the blocks that you may have had, even going back to your childhood, whatever it is. It's a fascinating world that we live in. And we're part of this amazing universe. And I think the more you understand your part in that part of the universe, the happier and healthier life that you're going to have, because that's been my experience. So today, last week we talked about acupuncture with the amazing Sally Varley, who's an acupuncturist and a holistic therapist. So if you want to go back and catch that episode, it's on the Radio Works World platform. But today I've brought the lovely Marion on because I didn't quite know where to start, actually, because Marion just knows so much about so many different things. So we've kind of had a bit of a chat and decided that today one of the things that we perhaps could talk about is things like fears and phobias. So I'm going to ask Marion, because Marion has got a particular speciality in this, and I've been very fortunate to have been a beneficiary of this. So Marion has got some amazing insight into it, and also some real tangible tools and techniques that you will be able to use in order to overcome any fears or phobias that you have. And one of the things that Marion is a speciality is talking about stage fright. So I thought maybe we'd start with that, Marion, first of all.
Yes, it's a huge problem, isn't it? Because I think, isn't it said that fear of public speaking, which is part of fears, it's like more people are frightened of speaking in public than they are of dying. Yeah. And I know, is it Jerry Seinfeld, the comedian in America? He said that more people would rather be in the coffin than standing up giving the eulogy at the funeral.
Oh my word, that's a bit extreme, isn't it, really? And,
well, he's a comedian.
What's interesting is that, you know, when you don't have a fear of public speaking, which we don't, let's face it, you know, and actually we've invested a lot of time and money in learning to be a better public speaker. Sometimes you forget what a massive issue this is, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. But having said that, Jill, it does still crop up for us, even when we're really people who practice a lot and who deliver a lot of content. Sometimes if there is somebody in the audience that is particularly stressing you, whether that be, I don't know, sometimes it could be your husband or your dad or your teacher or somebody that you have a difficult relationship with, or maybe the meeting is actually something really important, like it's an interview and you're going to be judged on your performance and you know you are, then even the most proficient speakers can suffer with anxiety. I know that one.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I think for the first time, I sing in front of my husband on stage, but actually on Friday, I actually was talking on stage, and I don't think I've ever done that before. So that was quite interesting. But I think there were just so many people there that I kind of didn't really think about it, to be honest with you. But I can see that, you know, particularly if it's a boss in a workplace, because you work with people in the corporate world, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. What the audience are expecting, what you believe the audience are expecting. And it's the level of judgment that you perceive is going to be given to you by the others, or that they're going to do for you. Because when you're feeling judged, when you're feeling like you have to live up to somebody else's expectations, where do you go? Because I don't know about you, but reading. We all try it all the time, but it's never successful, is it? Yeah. So yeah, it depends on the audience, and it depends on the level of judgment and criticism that you believe you might receive as a result of what you do, what you present.
And I think that's the key as well. It's what you do and what you present, because I see people who say, well, I can never do what you do because I and I are, and I just, my hands shake and my legs shake. But then when you get them talking about what they're really passionate about and what they know a lot about, all of a sudden that just disappears.
Absolutely.
And that's the key, isn't it? Is really, I suppose, in a workplace, sometimes you're delivering somebody else's information.
Sometimes that's true. The thing that for me that I know is the most important is that your attention is within when you're delivering content. That the content that you're delivering is not being, you're not trying to edit and mind read and deliver what you think other people want. That you're confident that whatever it is that you're about your own passion, or even if it's somebody else's content, if you believe in it and it can come through your heart and from your heart, and you can connect into your inner, your inner stillness, your inner strength and your inner power, that's when speaking becomes the most comfortable. And that's part of what I help to teach and what I help people to learn and understand is discovering how do you reconnect into yourself? How do you find your center? How do you, regain your composure and come back into your own heart and your own heart space? Because whenever we speak from that place, confidence is automatically attached to that way of delivering content. And
we've all been in a situation where we've suffered death by PowerPoint, haven't we?
Well, we're taught to, aren't we? And again, this is one of the big issues that I know was part of my discover and improve. People come with is all this baggage of what we've been taught. When we believe somebody is an authority, when we think somebody has more wisdom, more knowledge, more experience than us, and there's somebody to learn from, then often we don't, we take it too easily, we take on information too easily, and we don't question and we don't look at what's best for us. We just take it on, and we're taught in our education system, we're taught to do that. Regurgitating is given great honour in our education system, whereas, you know, radical free thinking is very often discouraged. So we are taught to take on other people's stuff. And then when that clashes with our own stuff, or when we're not really completely congruent with what that is, again, that's going to show up as lack of confidence or without clarity, so the audience don't really understand, and that will impact how we feel. All of the symptoms that you're talking about, the shaking hands, the shaking knees, these are all, they're all adrenaline responses, they're all fight or flight responses. And every time we get an adrenaline response, I mean, I know you know this, it's because we've been triggered to where we are no longer connected to our center, to our personal power. We've been triggered out of ourselves, if you like, into where we want to fight, we want to run away, we want to freeze. So all of the body mechanisms to do that are to try to keep us safe. And so learning about not only how to discover where your center is, it's really important how to recover once you've been thrown off center. How do you recover and come back and find your center so that you can then, you know, continue to present from your own heart, which is where all the confidence and clarity comes from.
And one of the things that, one of the skills that I learned was, because it's a funny situation, isn't it, is whenever I do a talk, somebody will say, are we taking questions, Gill? You know, are you going to take questions? And I always say no, because questions are usually the things that get you out of that alignment and get you out of your heart. So you're in the flow, and you've got to be really experienced, apart from anything else, to take questions for the floor, I believe, when you're doing a talk, because you know, if I do it, I'm lost then. I'm kind of off on a tangent, and it takes me ages to come back to, okay, so where was I?
Yes.
But you've got to have the confidence and a kind of the technique, and that's one of the techniques that you teach, isn't it? Is to actually structure, whether it's a best man speech, or whether it's a corporate talk, or whether it's an after dinner speech, or standing up and speaking at your your women's institution meeting. It's all the same thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, there are two parts to what I do, because working with people who have got real deep anxiety and stress, then what we work on is building confidence. So regaining your composure, bringing yourself back to your center and building your confidence, so that you know that when you're speaking, you're not going to keep losing your cool. You're not going to keep getting really nervous. And then the second part, once you've learned how to build your confidence, then the second part is to learn how to deliver clarity with clarity, so that the audience, and if they don't understand, it gives you tools and techniques where you can still assist the audience in understanding without losing your center, your composure, and going off on a tangent, which, as you say, is quite easy to do when people start asking questions. So the two parts are quite separate, because if you're very, very nervous, then we need to work on understanding where the nervousness is coming from and how to transform that. That's the first step. And then once you transform that nervousness into confidence, then how do you actually build a picture of real clarity that you speak from, so that your audience are actually getting the message? They're two very, very different ways, things to do, but obviously both really important when you're delivering content.
So just explain to us a little bit about how you actually go about this. How do you engage with people? Are you doing this face to face? Are you doing it on Skype? What are you doing, and what techniques do you give us a clue?
At the moment, I've got three arenas, three ways to work with people. So one of them is working face to face. I online to one sessions, and I have a product that people it's a product that's for sale on my website, which is a clearing process that I did with some clients. And each of those processes it begins with a script, and you fill in your information on the script so that we are using your content. So even though I'm working with one of my previous clients, as you're watching the videos and watching the clearing and you're actually taking part in the clearing process, you have your own information that's been quite well crafted through the questionnaires that are part of the product. So that's called Speak Easy. So again, that helps. Speak easy. You have to say it with the Scouse accent. Yeah. And I think, again, one of the really key parts about all of this is about this, how do you discover your own centre? Because to me, that's all about learning about my authentic self, or your authentic self. From the education system, we're denied our own authenticity and our own authority. It's like it's dumped upon us from above. And that's how we've been taught. That's how the whole of the system that we live in is actually structured. And so having to undo and that the authenticity, finding your own authenticity, they're always the first steps to move into a place where you speak with confidence. So the tools that I use when I'm working with people, the main tool that I use is actually a form of kinesiology, which is muscle testing. So if you like, it's a way of finding out, is this the right thing to do or not? Is this the right way to go or not? Is this the right question? Is this the right instant to go back to? Is this the right emotion to focus on? So it's a way of finding out yes or no. And kinesiology uses what I call the innate body wisdom. So we've all got this super intelligent body. It knows how to make blood. It knows how to grow bones. It knows how to heal scars. My mind doesn't know how to do any of those things. It's got no idea. And yet my mind believes it's running the show, adapt. Live in this structured society that we've been brought up with. So this mind that's been filled in by other people is there thinking it's the boss. And there's this super intelligent body underneath it doing all this amazing stuff with this innate wisdom. And I know that through the work that I do now, I know that the body knows so much more than the mind. And when you find a way for the mind to tune into the body, to plug into this innate wisdom, then you've got the best guide for your mind to help you to become authentic, to become your own authority. So this innate wisdom in my body is now my authority.
And that's that sense of awareness. And I think we're all on, it's a bit like, it's a scale, isn't it? And I've always thought that I was quite intuitive and quite aware, and but what I didn't know was that I needed to trust in that intuitiveness, and that I could rely on it, if you like, because I had other people saying to me, "Oh no, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. That's not the way it is," because that wasn't their reality. It was my reality, but because it wasn't their reality, they were questioning what my judgment was. So that confidence issue that you talked about is really important, and having confidence in yourself and that authenticity and who you are, and believing and trusting in yourself. And I've had endless conversations with people on the other show that I do about how glorious it is getting older. That in your 50s and 60s you have this wonderful sense of who you are. And if you say to people in their 20s, it's great being 50, they'd never believe you.
They don't get it. I mean, for me, definitely the power that it gives me when I know that I am my own authority, and I'm getting closer and closer to my authentic self. But what it also gives me, it gives me the ability to be compassionate. It gives me the ability to empathize with others. And it also has given me recently I'm beginning to get more and more empowered by, it's okay for everybody to have a different opinion. It's okay for everybody to have a different set of rules and judgments and whatever it is. And actually, I'm beginning to find it really intriguing and interesting that people are so different. Whereas I think in my 20s and until quite recently, I wanted people to be the same as me, to have the same opinions as me, to judge things in the same way as me, so that we could all be in the same gang, if you like, so I would feel part of a community. But now I know I am part of the community, and many different communities. And I can share space, time and love with people, even when we've got really, really different opinions. And that's been something definitely only in my 50s that I've discovered how to do. Because I remember as part of my own healing journey, because all of the work that I do is actually about healing me.
Yeah, and mine.
I know that I help other people. And this might sound a bit disingenuous, but it isn't. But I actually don't care that I help other people. I care that I'm looking after myself and I'm discovering who I am and I'm becoming more authentic. And part of the reason why I say I don't care about other people is because I know that the more I can model brilliant and authentic and wise people, the better I become. So if I can be a model for other people, then I want to be the best model that I can be. Because I can't take charge of what other people do. I can't change other people's minds. I can't change other people's thinkings or feelings. And so I need to stop trying to do that. And the only way I can do that is by, focusing totally on me. And I know it's working because, the clients, the friends, the students that I have that have shared with me the great transformations that they've had. And they say it's as a result of something that I've helped or shared with them. That's amazing. And I know that often, and I'm sure you've got the same experience, Jill, often we're told something that we've really, really helped in blue, that we've done it, we don't remember what we said. I mean, I know I helped you with an issue and I had no idea what it was. I've had great impact on you, So if I constantly try to have an impact, I'm not going to get that right. It has to come naturally. It has to be part of the flow of what I'm doing, who I'm being, and how I am being me.
Yeah. This is. Oh, I've got an echo. This is a big lesson because as therapists or whatever you want to call us, coaches or whatever, coming from this heart-centered place that the majority of us are, is that we kind of view ourselves, or the danger is to view ourselves, and we're kind of viewed from the outside as like a medical doctor. So we're going to fix you because so whether that's a psychologist or a physician or a cardiac surgeon, okay, so I've got an issue, so I'm going to go to that person and they're going to fix me. And that's the way that, traditional medicine, if you like, or healing is seen to take place. But of course, when this concept was first put into my head and it was flipped on top, flipped the other way up. To be honest, to begin with, I just thought, this is too much for me. I don't know how to, I just can't understand this. But it sank in and it took me a while to work it out. But you're absolutely right. When you do the work on yourself, is then actually, apart from anything else, you are the beacon of what you believe in.
Yes.
And people will either be attracted to you or they won't. And if they're not attracted to you, then they might be attracted to somebody else. And that's okay too, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, finding clarity on, you mentioned the Find Your Why group that we're in. And the Find Your Why, to me, the crux of finding your why is focusing on what you do want. It's so common, isn't it, that people, I know what I don't want. And I know I've said it many times. I don't really know what I want, but I know what I don't want. Actually, knowing what you don't want can help. But if you only focus on what you don't want, what is it you're actually moving towards? You're not really moving towards anything, are you? You're just running away from. And that means that what you're running away from is where your focus is going, where your energy is going. So law of attraction is going to bring more of it, more stuff for you to run away from. Whereas when you focus on what you want, law of attraction will bring you more of that, because it always brings you more of what you're feeling and what you're focusing on anyway. So by focusing on what you do want and learning how to discover what you really do want, what is your why, what is your purpose, that's been a huge breakthrough for me to really get that and to understand clarity. Keep focusing on what I do want, and it changes, finding my why, it's the focus of what I'm moving towards. It's got its own little life. It drifts and it changes, the crux of what my why is fun and joy. And
Yes.
I think it's the same for most people. But the way that I can express fun and joy, or receive joy or fun, these they shift and change every moment, because depending on what mood I'm in, depending where I am, who I'm with, I feel slightly different. So what I need to bring me joy, or what I need to, to allow the enjoyment to come through me, they change all the time too. Things are constantly changing. But by staying in that forward, focusing on what I do want, it's amazing what comes, what things are, coincidences or synchronicity, or whatever you want to call them. I don't personally believe in coincidence. I think that, what is here in front of me is a reflection of what I'm thinking and feeling. And a great part of the Stage Fright Away work, and in the Find Your Why Foundation, it's clearing out the things that keep pulling us back to what we don't want, because they're old programs. So I used to program computers, and now I help to deprogram people. And what I'm deprogramming are all of those things that keep dragging your attention, dragging your focus, because those things are the things that the law of attraction is going to bring more and more of. And the law of attraction, I watched The Secret years ago, and I started doing all these positive affirmations. But I realize now that even when I was doing positive affirmations, I was kind of focusing on what I didn't want. So I was focusing on, lack, when I should have been focusing on abundance, or I was focusing on fear when I should have been focusing on power. So again, really clearly understanding on what I want to move towards, that for me has been the biggest breakthrough. And it's changed the way life is for me, the way I live my life, and the way life appears in front of me as well.
And it has for me too. And what's coming up for me is that, I am a woman of a certain age with children that are out of the house. You don't have any children. And it sounds sometimes that, we're focusing on ourselves as if this can be a very selfish thing to do. And particularly as a woman, we're notoriously bad at putting our needs first and putting ourselves first. And I guess there may well be people listening or watching this in the replay that will be going, well, that sounds great for you, but I've got 3 small children, and I've got a husband, and I've got a job, and how on earth can I do all of these things and concentrate on me? Why should I do that? What would you say to those people?
No, there's two things that I would say. See if I can remember both of them. The first one is that our children learn by what we do, not by what we say. And so if you are being a martyr and you're sacrificing yourself, your health, your time, your energy, if you're sacrificing it for others, you're teaching your children to do the same. So do you want your children to be martyrs, or do you want them to learn how to look after themselves? Because they can only do that by watching you look after yourself. And that takes me to the second bit of the response to this, which is, when they say on the aeroplane, the oxygen mask thing, mother wouldn't dream of putting the mask on themselves first. And I made up a story once just to shock somebody into the reality of that. So you're going to put a mask on your child so that they can stay alive and watch you die of oxygen starvation. What sort of a prize is that? What sort of an experience is that to give your child? Because that is actually the shocking truth of it. I know it's a bit of an extreme example, but that's basically what we're doing. If you're giving up, if you're surrendering to the needs of others constantly, then you are teaching your children to give away their freedom, to give away their power to other people. And that's the thing about external authority. There is really an authority is a belief structure. And the more that we focus on our inner authority, the more we're teaching our children to focus on their inner authority too, and to allow them to be authentically and authoritatively who they are in this.
Yes, and there's an element of respect here, in that I have amazing respect. I know that my children respect me and my husband as well. And that's because we set out our stall. We know exactly what the boundaries are. You hear so many parents say, I'll do anything for my children. Well, okay. And there's certain things that I'll do for my children, but I won't do anything for them. I'm going to keep them safe, and I'm going to, make sure that they're not going to starve. But anything is that mentality, isn't it? Of, I'm going to put myself last because they're the ones that need the shoes and the trips to abroad and all the rest of it, and it doesn't matter about me. And that's that subtle thing, as you say, that you're putting into their brain. And then when they get into teenagers, because I've had teenagers and I've seen other teenagers, I didn't have this from my children, but if you're giving them those subtle messages all the time, well, it's okay, you're more important than me, when they get to that stage where they want and they're that demanding teenager, you're gonna suffer so much by all of a sudden going, hang on a minute, just because you're 14, you can't have, you've set your stall out here. You can't suddenly change your mind.
Yeah, no, it's like it's a sacrifice, isn't it? If you sacrifice yourself, if you sacrifice looking after yourself, again, it's just what you're teaching them to do. And as teenagers, when they're learning how to identify their own boundaries as they're growing up in the world, by not teaching them boundaries, then you're actually giving them more to suffer from, aren't you?
Mm. Yeah, making things worse, not better. Now, you mentioned, we talked about the fear of public speaking. You also are a magician in terms of other fears and phobias as well. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so fears and phobias are all the results of a trauma or a shock, a very unexpected, significant shock of some kind that happened to you in the past that you had no strategy to deal with. And in that shock moment, the body learns, especially, the lizard brain, the dinosaur bit of the brain, that part which is in control of a lot of the things, it's also, that's the part that controls this innate intelligence in the body too. That basically, it's either happy to be, or it needs to fight or be in fight or flight or freeze. So it's almost like an on-off switch, if you like. It's quite digital. It's either yes, everything's good, or no, everything's terrible. And when we have a shock or a trauma of some kind, it leaves an imprint in that, so that whenever we are reminded of that shock, the whole body goes into, no, this is not safe, I need to get away, or I need to play dead, or I need to fight for my life. And when we have a phobia, to me, a phobia is like a repeated fear. It's been repeated and repeated and repeated until the point where as soon as the body has a hint or a sniff of the possible fright or shock or trauma that it had in the past, it just goes into this huge stress response. And so understanding what was that past incident that happened, and what was it that was needed at that time for you to be able to stay centered, to stay within yourself. And sometimes running away is the best thing to do, but you don't need to do it hysterically, or you don't need to do it to your own detriment. So there is a way of behaving that is much more mindful, that is much more, what's the word? Control is the wrong word, but it's done in a much more thoughtful way. And as adults, when we are in a calm, centered space, we can clearly identify the types of resourceful response, the types of resourceful behavior and emotions that we can embody when we encounter something that we need to deal with or to process. And so by bringing the old, if you like, it's often like an inner child experience, and bringing this new, compassionate, mindful, resourceful parent, guardian, adult that I am now, by bringing all of those resources in to actually gift to that inner child, there are a few different processes that I can do, and I use kinesiology to ask your body which one to do. But we can bring those resources in, and what it does is it switches that lizard brain from, oh my God, I'm really, really scared, to, I have a strategy for this now. So it's only when we have no strategy for something and we're habituated to believe there is no strategy that we will actually have the response of a phobia or a fear. Whereas when we understand, as a resourceful, powerful woman who's got lots of life lessons, who's got lots of role models around me, I can identify clearly in any moment when I'm in my rational, calm mind, what are the resources I need right now to be able to live through this experience in the best way possible for me. So I don't know if that answers your question, because I felt I was rambling at the end.
What came up for me there was that sort of rational brain, because often when you've got a fear or a phobia, it's irrational.
Yes.
Don't you?
Yes.
But that actually just makes you feel worse, because you think, well, there's a spider that's this big.
Yeah.
And I know in my rational brain that actually there's nothing that this thing can do to me. It's not going to kill me. There's no woman. But you're
say it, don't they? When you're scared of something.
Yeah.
Oh, calm down. What's your problem?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If you are in full-on fight or flight, doesn't matter what people say. You're stuck in that response.
Yeah.
So it's about really understanding how to switch that trigger, if you like, in the brain. And there's a few different ways. There are a few different ways to do it. But again, everybody's different. Every situation is different. So this is where the beauty of the kinesiology helps me in the work that I do, the clients that I've got, because we ask your innate wisdom in your body. So we're looking at this problem. What resources do we need? And it will help us. And how do we then implement those resources? And the body will tell us what to do. So one of the reasons why I love kinesiology is it is a wisdom decision maker, and what I use rather than trying to use my limited mind.
Yes, it's the body themselves. And are there circumstances where people, like people live with disease, so they identify with their illness, and that might sound a bit controversial, but very often, if you're told that you have fibromyalgia, then almost the first thing people will say to me, hello, my name's Sue and I've got fibromyalgia. Well, I didn't actually ask you that, but you kind of live within that disease or that illness.
Yeah, it becomes part of our identity, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so our identity is actually, it's another set of programs and beliefs in the mind, who we believe we are. So I've got this name is Marion, it was given to me by somebody. It's not who I am. Yeah. I mean, even like I did an article on it last year in the Find Your Why Foundation about how many body parts would have to be amputated before I stopped being me. So there's that film, isn't there, with Steve Martin, The Man with Two Brains, and so there's a brain in a jar, and even the brain in the jar, apparently it's plugged in and it's still alive. It's got its own identity, and then when he gives it a body, this body then builds itself back to this big fat identity that brain used to have. But the identity are just the clothes that the self wears. So my name, it's like an item of clothing. I'm English, it's like an item of clothing. I'm a woman, it's an item of clothing, because I'm not religious in any way, but I have very spiritual, my way of expressing myself and the way of understanding myself is very spiritual. I was an atheist for many, many years, and there was a big switch suddenly. My uncle asked me a question one day. He said, do you not believe that we are connected other than through physical families? And since a kid, I've always said that we are all the same. If you took the skin off us all, we'd all be identical, wouldn't we? So there's this innate knowing that I've got, that we are more similar than we are different. So when he asked me that question, it was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. It was in my early 30s. And I suddenly realized, actually, I'm not an atheist, because I think atheists believe everything is just a coincidence, or there's no reason or purpose. But I do believe that we are more similar than we are different. And so that started me on a really long spiritual journey, which has brought me to where I am today. So I studied yoga, and my body was expressing lots of symptoms. I became my symptoms. I had an autoimmune disease, so I considered myself to be autoimmune. I was constantly attacking myself, and that was true, because I was. You know, I was constantly judging and attacking myself. And that was actually, now I understand, that is one of the things, the foundations that has given my body the ability to express the symptoms as it has, because I see symptoms as a language. They're the language of the body, and that language is showing me how my body is adapting to cope with what my mind is perceiving. And our minds are full of filters. So again, the identity is part of the filtering system that I have. And it can be very, very difficult for us to get rid of or to disassociate ourselves from something that we've always identified ourselves with. Because, you know, if I see myself as a person suffering with autoimmunity, then I'm a victim. So I get some good, you know, I might get some people wanting to help and look after me. And that feels nice when people want to look after me. But actually, when I look at the payoff of being a victim, I don't really care if people want to look after me. I'd much rather not be a victim and realise I do have choices in every moment.
And is that the same with phobias? Do some people kind of hold on to their phobia as some sort of safety net almost?
Yes, there's a really lovely saying. There's a great teacher called Carolyn Miss. She's a medical intuitive, a fabulous teacher. And she says, I love it, people who have, you know, like if you've got the fibromyalgia club, so you are wound buddies and you connect through that wound. And it actually means that you want to manage and maintain it because you have a sense that that wound is what connects you to other people. And I believe the deepest need of all of humanity is love and connection. Yeah. That's my belief. And many people disagree. I don't care. I'm happy with my belief, and I'm happy with those that disagree with me too. But the belief that being connected is such a deep, deep, profound need in all of us, so that anything that we find that does connect us, we're going to hold on to it. Yeah.
And that might come as a shock to some people, you know, whatever disease that they have or illness that they're living with. But like you, I'm sure, Marion, I would urge anybody that is hearing this kind of thing for the first time is to really just allow that to come in and to really perhaps even do some investigations, to really talk to some people about it. Just do your own, you know, you go and find people that have had the experience that you've had, that have come out of those kind of diseases and those phobias, because actually it is possible. There is this real light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, people like Marion and I are seeing people all the time that are moving out of this pain and discomfort, and whether it's mental, physical pain, and into this happier, healthier and more prosperous life. But you've got to be open to those ideas and new wacky woo-woo ideas. And for some of us, it takes longer than others.
Well, if we were not open to new ideas, we wouldn't have any of the technology that we've got. We wouldn't have any light bulbs. We wouldn't have cars. We wouldn't know if the world was round or flat. And I know that that's a big debate at the moment. One of the first teachers that I found who helped me to understand this, symptoms are an expression of the body, that they are a language of their own, and they speak very clearly about what's going on inside my mind. It was a guy called Dr. Wright Hammer, and actually he died last week. Now, he was, it's a really beautiful soul. He had testicular cancer. He was a doctor, a medical doctor, and he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And the year before, or 2 years before, his son had been shot and died. And he knew that the cancer was a result of the trauma of his son dying. And he went off and investigated and discovered and identified so much wisdom. And he created a thing called the 5 biological laws. So if, as Gill said, if you're open to seeing new possibilities, and there are always so many possibilities around us, we can't possibly know everything. Nobody knows everything. And anybody that believes they do know everything, then I don't know. I'm not going to insult anyone. But if you're open to it, then definitely get onto Google or go and do some research. And Dr.
Louise Hay has written a fantastic book.
Yes, exactly. So she did it in a much more spiritual way. Dr. Hammer did it in a very medical way. So it's lovely that they actually both came up with the same conclusions, the same understanding about symptoms, symptom expression, and what is the language of the symptoms. So Dr. Hammer did the 5 biological laws, and then his subject matter became a topic called German New Medicine. I work with teachers who do a school that's an offshoot of that called meta medicine or meta health. So it's this looking at what is above. Meta means the overview of what is it that sits above health. Because I know you worked in the NHS for a while as well, didn't you, Gill? That the NHS is actually focused on illness. It's not really focused on health, because it's not about once the symptom has happened, the NHS looks at the symptom and works with the symptom. Yeah. So to be able to have a life where you are looking to gain health and not to clear symptoms. It sounds very similar, but actually it's almost like the paradox of what the health service offers us now, isn't it?
Yeah. And I talk about it being a national illness service, not a national health service. And, my help that I do for people is all about building health rather than treating disease, basically, based on the principles of Stephen Horn and Stephen Horn, the herbalist that I had on to my Lighthearted Conversation. That was a fascinating interview. If you haven't seen that one, he's a past president of the American Herbalist Society, association. And, he is also into emotional healing as well. And so he's a really, really fascinating guy. So we're very much coming from, turning on its head, basically. And one of the big things that we do know is that, disease, there's no money in health. There's only money in sickness, basically.
Absolutely.
And particularly in America.
I mean, the root of all spending and consumerism are around fear, discomfort, and disease.
Yeah.
Because if we were comfortable, if we were happy, we felt safe, and we felt we were in abundance,
loved and connected. Yeah.
What would we wouldn't need to spend anything. We wouldn't need to be consumers. So we wouldn't be able to sustain this, the capitalistic structures that are around us at the moment.
Absolutely. So it's absolutely fascinating. I think we probably just ought to share my little secret and what you did for me. Do you think we ought to tell everybody?
Oh, I'd love to tell everyone.
Go on, you tell them what happened.
From my perspective, what happened was about 18 months ago, we had an event and I was showing people how to do a process. It's one of these processes that helps to switch the brain from running into fight or flight or freeze to identifying a positive, rational resource that we can then go on, a preferred response. And as I was demonstrating this, I asked for a guinea pig, and Gill was my guinea pig. And she stood on stage next to me, and I said, okay, so think about a problem. I don't want to know what it is. We don't need to go discussing. I just want you to think about a problem and think about what happens to you when that problem presents itself. And then if you were able to, what would you rather do? So confronted with the same problem, there's no change in the perceived problem. What would you rather do? How would you rather respond? And how would you rather be in the face of that same thing? And with those two pieces of knowledge, we then do the process. So I did this process with Gill, and immediately afterwards, so many questions came out of the audience that I didn't get a chance to talk to Gill about it. And then a year later, we were sat around a dinner table, I think, or at some event. And Gill said, yes, remember you helped me to clear that phobia, didn't you, Marion? And I said, did I? I had no idea that what I'd done was, and it was a snake phobia, wasn't it, Gill? Mm-hmm. So tell us about your snake phobia, Gill.
Yeah, so it's interesting what you were saying, because I think my snake phobia was an inherited phobia from my mother. I might be wrong. It might be being something that happened to me as a child, but I know that my mother was very fond of
watching your mother. We've got mirror neurons.
Yeah,
so your mother is having a response. Your brain is actually creating the same response. That's another great piece of science. The mirror neurons people should check those out too.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, as you said earlier when we were talking about our children and looking after yourself, and that they will mirror that. So I'd always had this snake phobia, and I remember one day somebody had a grass snake and they were putting it down my neck, and I literally thought I was going to die. And so for the longest time, you know, a television program would come on or whatever, and there'd be a snake, and everybody would go, oh, you know, Mum, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look, don't look. Anyway, so I just concentrated on that, and apparently my physiology changed during this 10-minute session. You know, I was kind of hunched to begin with, and at the end of the session, apparently I was, you know, my physiology changed. And now what's really interesting is that my family still say, Mum, don't look at the television. Even though I'm sitting looking at the television at a snake, they're saying, don't look. And I'm saying, well, actually, it's okay. You know, I've cleared that phobia. But they are still, they're still living it on my behalf. Yes. Even though I can still, I don't know what I'd do if I've confronted a snake. I don't know, because I haven't. But I couldn't even watch something on the television. Okay. But now, you know, I don't feel the same way about it at all.
Yes.
And it was really funny that you had no idea what you were doing.
No, I had no idea I had no idea what your thoughts and what the perceived problem was. No. But I knew that what I was doing was working, because, as you say, your physiology changes, you know, the pupils dilate when you're frightened, the lips get thinner, the skin changes colour, so the hands, the posture of the body, everything shifts when you're in fear. There's a physiology, there's a way that the body behaves. And when you're relaxed and you're happy and confident, there's a way that the body behaves. So I know, I can see when I'm working with somebody face to face or even on Skype, I can see the physiology shifting. So I know that what's happening in that moment is the right thing to happen. So yes, that was so interesting, because when you said that about the snake, I was like, talking about, I've got no idea that it was a snake thing that we worked on. But and then it was really great to know that even a year later, you were still in the process of what would you rather be? Well, I'd rather be calm. I'd rather be able to watch a snake on TV, or whatever your rather be was. That you were still able to embody and behave in that way. Yeah,
it's great. So it's been really fascinating. I love talking to you. We talk quite a lot anyway, don't we?
Yes.
But it's really good to know a little bit more about the background, about what you do and how you do it. So we have had your website up on the screen already, so that would have come up during the show. You have a Facebook page, which is also called Stage Right Away. So they can also contact you there as well. And I'd like to invite you to the Find Your Why Foundation, because it's one of the things that's really helped me. I've been part of the foundation. In fact, I think I was the first member, wasn't I?
You were member number 1, absolutely. We loved you.
And so I'm still in that membership, and I can't begin to express to you the benefits that I've reaped from being part of that wonderful Wise Women community. Because you don't have to work it out on your own, and you don't have to do it alone. That's right, Marion, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's nice. Lisa's just joined us as well.
Oh, yeah, she has.
So anybody who is listening to this, if you're in the UK on the 22nd of July, come along to the first anniversary of the Find Your Why Foundation. It's taking place in Yorkshire. And underneath, I'm going to put a link to that event as well, because that's going to be a really great evening. And as Gill said, it's collaborative, it's a community, and we really are there to support and help each other. And from a place without judgment, because, as I just said, it's okay for me to have my opinion, and it's okay for you to have your opinion. Whether they're similar or different doesn't have to affect the way that we connect.
No. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time. I've had the most brilliant vitality conversation. I hope you've had too. And thank you to everybody who's watching or who watches later on. Please connect with Marion. My website is gillbarham.com. You can find out what I do there as well. We hope to see you in Tankersley Manor on the 22nd of July. It's posh frocks, you know, you've got to be glittery. We like to dress up, don't we, Maz?
We do. We like a bit of sparkle, a bit of stardust.
Yeah, a bit of stardust. Yeah, okay. So thank you very much, and have a great day, everybody. And we'll see you again soon. We'll see you next week. Next week, I have a lady called Karen Whitelaw-Smith on with me. She's absolutely fascinating. I'll keep you up to date with all of the great work that she does. You mustn't miss that episode either. She's absolutely brilliant at what she does too. So I'll give you the opportunity to ask some questions about her particular area of work too. She's a real psychic, and just spookily knows what's going on with everybody. So I'll keep you posted about that episode, which will be next week at 1:00 on Tuesday. So thank you again, Marion. Love to you.
Love to you, Jill. Thanks very much.
Okay.